Okay, everybody, let's start the Nantucket Conservation Commission meeting for January 10th, 2018. We are being recorded, so if you are recording us, please let us know. And if you could put your cell phones on the quiet mode, that would be greatly appreciated. We're going to start with the public meeting, public comments, or any items not being heard tonight. Anybody? Anybody? Excellent. Okay, so going to the public hearing, notice of intent. We have a bunch of continuances. Mary D. Starr, 19 East Creek Road, continued till February 7th. Flint Hill Partners, LLC, 74 West Chester, continued till January 24th. As well as Meesenberg, 30 Wawinnet Road, January 24th. And the last item on the notice of intent, R. Thomas and James R. Okonak, trustee, 20 and 23 Mass Ave, is continued till the 24th of January as well. Amended orders, Stephen L. Cohen, trustee, 6872 Monomoy Road, is continued to the 24th. And in the request for termination, Elder, 42 Liberty Street, is continued to the 24th as well. And I think that's about it. So we're going to start with 12 North Road. I'm sorry, pardon me? Oh, which item? Oh, Elder. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be continued till, which one is Elder? Oh, that right here, Elder. It's continued till the 24th, January 24th.
Who requested?
I don't know.
The applicant, I would think. Yeah.
You could submit your comments.
I want to make some comments.
I've been dealing with. We're not really opening it. Do we want to?
Well, we're not.
We're not opening it, but could you, if you give them to the office, they'll be put in our packet. Oh, I understand totally.
I thought it was being concluded today. Well, I knew it was scheduled to be there. If you have something written, and we don't typically. I do have something written. We can take that into the record and submit it. Sure, the written things I submitted to you. I mean, if you submit the hard copies, we'll put them in, and unfortunately, because the applicant has requested a continuance, we can't really open up the
we're
discussion.
not opening up the.
Oh, it comes under public comment.
No, absolutely. We are. You can hand them to Joanne, and they'll be entered into the permanent record, and they'll be part of the discussion at the next hearing.
Problem. We didn't open this one up, so.
Right, but we always say we open to public comment.
Right.
And since he's flown it all the way.
True. True.
But
So we opened it.
it's not true public comment because it's on an item that's specifically listed.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
But that's okay.
Okay. Well, we promise you we'll read it. Okay. So we're going to start with 12 North Road Trust. 12 North Road. Sorry about that.
Unfortunately, it's often out of our hands.
Right.
No. Huh?
Okay.
Expecting another person to present. Could we push this back?
So you guys waiting for someone else?
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff is all around.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys, if it's all right, we can take on the
We can do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next item then.
Sure.
Just go to
To item 5, Kathy Gallagher, Revocable Trust at 2 Hornbeam Road.
Just another continuing. No one will be here tonight.
Brian Madden from LEC Environmental, representing the applicant. The notice of intent before you is for a septic upgrade. This had been previously approved, and the order of conditions had lapsed, expired. So this is basically just refining it. The proposed system is outside an 100-foot leach system north of the existing cottage. And basically, all that is proposed is a new pump chamber within the lawn areas to replace the existing within the main component. And that's just right on the 50-foot buffer line. And basically the gist of it. Just to point out, I think I looked through the notice of intent that was filed by Bracken, and they had checked off that it was within estimated in priority habitat, but actually closer inspection, it's not. It's outside of mapped area, so not something that National Heritage Committee. There's portions of the site that are, but not the work activity.
Any questions? None for me. Questions from the public? Seeing none, Jeff, we have everything we need to close on this?
We do now.
Ready to close, Brian?
Yes.
We have a motion?
Yep. Motion to close.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good.
We'll tell Tom it was really up to
So we're gonna, do you want to skip into the
No,
question?
we're ready for it right now.
Oh, we're ready. Oh.
Snuck in.
Oh, here. Please come in. So we're going back to 2 North Road Trust, 12 North Road.
All right, I just started talking. Let's have walked there anymore.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Brian Swain, attorney for the applicant.
Stan Humphreys with LEC Environmental Consultant.
And Seth Wilkinson.
The last time that we met, there was obviously a lot of discussion about the debris behind the bulkhead. And since that time, Seth and his company have been working to remove a lot of the drifted concrete. He's got some photos and maybe wants to talk a little bit about that. There was also the issue of beach nourishment that was discussed. I provided the commission with a letter in that regard. I can go over that. And then finally, I think the third issue was whether the groins had a Chapter 91 license. And that won't get too much discussion. Kevin's research didn't start up anything. So it was groins laughing he was. Seth, you want to talk about the work that you've done?
Sure. Okay. So I was in contact with staff, and it's just gone through it, so we don't notice. But it felt like at the last couple of hearings that was just sort of an unknown. What's under there? We don't know. And so we corresponded with Jeff, and just by hand, we had a crew over here wrapping up the road project, and they went out shortly after the new year. And as you can see, be cold looking at those pictures. And just hand moved the rock. The rock cribbing is what we sometimes refer to as man-sized rocks, meaning one man can pick up movement. So they went through it by hand, carried everything out. So they're sort of like construction or deconstruction, not project shots. They walked it out up the stairway and stockpiled everything in the outside the buffer in the driveway, everything like that. So we feel at this point it's rock, and there could be stuff buried many feet down, but we saw no signs of it. There was a lot of debris that had sort of washed in, both cushions, buoys, the normal. And I have unfortunately not been able to see it since the last storm. We've seen there was a lot of material, but I think given that the harbor is iced in last week, that we wouldn't have any material floating there. So it's like put it out this point and feel like we're getting it's pretty heavily investigated. So 2 of 1 technicians per day going through it.
That must have been a tough job.
Yeah, it was felt the only building thing that had to do that. To have frost in the ground and
Yeah.
So, not a lot to do, but we were after the work.
So, real quickly, just to talk about that, I know Seth said that he had contacted the office, and I think we felt that activity was covered under the enforcement for the removal of that debris, so it's not trying to circumvent the process or deal with it. I know it had been a concern to get it removed, so I said okay, because it was to bring it into a greater state of compliance. And they were available and wanted to remove it. And I don't think there was any question that it was going to be getting removed. So he said okay.
And mostly we wanted to be able to tell you this. What we found primarily bricks and mortar. That was the most non-compatible thing. There was a lot of plastic and debris that floated.
I just wonder why they had that whole elaborate system of chutes. Remember those pictures where they had the sluice ways going down there? I mean, if this was already, if all this stuff was already there, that would have been a lot of effort to just throw some brick and stuff down there to make this sluice ways. I mean, I don't know. Just, yeah, I know, no, it just seems odd.
Yeah,
But,
I agree. Very odd.
Unless the wall shifted.
what?
Unless the wall shifted and
And they had to, sure, yeah, right.
built back in.
Yeah. Anyway.
Looks like the wall is slowly shifting out there.
Gaming property.
That's
Okay.
been no discussion on that.
Yeah, no, you know. Yeah.
In the letter that I provided, we went through a little bit of a discussion of how limited sediment transport is in this environment. A little concern about too much nourishment being added that would move offshore and possibly smaller eelgrass beds. Fortunately, in this site, the erosion rate, long-term erosion rate, is about a half a foot per year. It's not great. It's not a wildly eroding site. So using that rate times the height of the bank that's being protected by these measures and the length of about 180 feet, we calculated 30 yards of material will be nourished yearly. And I think that you have had other nourishment projects that probably have standard conditions on monitoring, so nothing was proposed at this point. Getting that amount of compatible sand, grain size, to the site annually.
And how does it get there? There's some access challenges on the surface, so, you know.
Probably some type of a chute from the upland.
There's one there.
Yeah.
She's already set up an actor.
Fabulous design.
They were thinking ahead.
Yeah. There are better ways of doing it. But yeah, it's challenging, but I mean, there's just like a couple besides checking about truck loads is a reasonable argument to put in certain that that you've got plenty of great get down the fast and without damaging the information that's out there.
Are we, remind me again, you want to put the rolls in the bottom, you're going to remove the terraced
So
barriers
yeah,
midway up?
basically the beige denotes where the, well, let me start at the start. I'm going to turn it plan upside down and start to sin, like it just doesn't seem hard. So you're in the upland, I'm in the harbor. So here is oh no, I'm sorry, I did the wrong way around, the right way for you. So you're in the harbor, I'm in the upland, yeah. So this beige area, so here's the timber bulkhead, as you can see. And then there would be a little splash area coming in where the engineer felt most appropriate for that continue to be rock, so they can get that water to move down, which is important. It's very important in a situation like that. You don't have that water loading up and creating forward pressure back towards the harbor. And then the fiber roll will basically displace that lower terrace wall, which is sort of the most exposed one. There are some other terraces, to be clear. Further up, we figured that could be a bit like pulling the yarn on your sweater that's at the bottom of your sweater every time you get down your belly shirt. So it's such a steep grade, and we felt that disturbing that at this point would be potentially more harm than good. So it's focusing on the bottom where it's most important.
Well, I have a question and a comment. And so I just handed 2 copies of what I got from the building department. for this. I asked Kevin last time, Brian, as to why the building was entitled to any statutory protection. And I got an indeterminate answer, as he didn't know how much of the building was original. Well, the answer is none of it. That it was, half of it was demolished and the rest was removed of the original building there in 2003. And so I've handed that out to you. You've got 2 copies, identical copies there. And it, so I feel that, and I certainly don't want to imply that the debris was put down there to try and protect it was because in fact the owners knew that in fact it wasn't entitled to statutory protection. But I feel our brief is to protect what we're charged to protect wherever possible, and so to protect the beach and the bluff. That, there shouldn't be any additional work done on it, and that it should be allowed to fail. So that is why I thought it was in here.
It's interesting.
It is, it's funny, I was thinking, I obviously thought about this a lot a month ago. And at the time, I think there was a big project going on, and I don't necessarily disagree with it. At the time, there was a big project going on in Grant Point. There were a couple of projects, and I consider how many of those houses on Grant Point that all have structures in front of them have been totally rebuilt. I mean, it's not uncommon for houses to have bulkheads that are houses not. Yeah.
Right.
If they maintain the bulkhead.
So if, do we have any kind of framework for this? This is a question for you, Jeff, if you don't mind. If the bulkhead and the house, the bulkhead was built, I think it said in some of the letters in here, the bulkhead was built to protect a pre-1978 house when it was built, right? So do we have any framework for the bulkhead having, staying power forever with the ability to keep it in good shape, because it was built within, our.
This one, though, seemed to have fallen to a point where it wasn't the original bulkhead, like nobody was maintaining it. And at that point, if it gets to that state of disarray, I don't know that it's, you're almost rebuilding a new structure versus maintaining something that was in there. And I don't know, if the groins don't have licensing, when were they put in? Were they permitted through the Concom here? No, if they didn't have Chapter 91 licensing, right?
No, they certainly could have been permitted here and then just not applied for their Chapter 91 license.
Was the original notice of intent that was approved to build this approved by the Concom? So the structure itself is in disrepair, and they want to repair it. I think that's the intent of this application.
Right, but I fully understand, Brian. But from our point of view, we're caught by this ruling that pre-78 houses are entitled to protection. And what happens in practice is that we get intrusion on the beach and on the marine environment because of this stricture on our environmental laws. And I would argue that the bulkhead was the rationale for the bulkhead was to protect a pre-78 structure. That rationale no longer exists. It's quite clear to me, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that that is an entirely post-78 structure. It dates from 2003, 2004.
Does the building permit for the COA say on its face that it was there's one to demolish the entire structure?
Yeah.
And then there's another permit to erect a new structure?
Yes.
Well,
I guess if you go down and look, I've just produced the paperwork for the demo and moving of the structure that was there prior to 2003. But
Yeah.
so we're going to be future conservation commissioners are going to be confronted by either we're going to have more and more of the beach basically protected in this fashion with less and less of the beach available to the public, or we say no. But if the house is a new house post 78 and it was built with an existing bulkhead to protect the pre-78 structure, it does not get grandfathered in. There is no statutory right for it to be grandfathered in. And our belief is basically to protect the beach, not protect the house.
Also think this structure, to me, seems to have been failing in many ways, because I believe it was the last meeting that we found out that no nourishment had been provided, like, ever, and that was part of their permit. So none of the proper maintenance has been going on.
Well, I think that there's some argument that the project that was permitted was kind of a substandard design, though, in the first place. I'm just not to play devil's advocate here, but I think that there's got to be some discussion about what is memorialized. They're all over the island.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
It's not uncommon, really.
Yeah, I think there's over 60 in total.
Really? Post 78 homes that had the bulkheads?
No, bulkheads in total.
Bulkheads, yeah.
And
sure,
that's, we had that debate about Wisconsin, and it turned out that there are only 3 pre-78 houses on that 900-foot length, in fact. So that's something that I think we're going to need to address in the future. But this, in particular, I feel we're on sound grounds to deny any further work on it. And that future generations will thank us for that. And I'm sorry that that was tough on your client.
Yeah, if the board makes that motion or decision, can we continue this so that I can look further into it, gather more information?
Well, I'd say, if you're going to ask a continuance, you can ask continuance at any
Yeah.
point as the applicant. I would see if there's anything else.
Okay.
I mean, I got the impression Billy said that there was some of the original structure was still left into this. And in fact, in this drawing, it shows this portion being removed. Now, the drawing also shows,
It actually
it shows this area, I think, is what the drawings are.
That was moved. That was demolished. That was moved.
So that might be the only thing.
Well, I
There's
think,
nothing left. That's demolished. That's
all right,
moved.
as we break down this, I think the easier way is to simply say is the stuff, the materials provided, make it unclear onto the status of the pre-78 structure for there, and just get some clarity on what exactly with all that information,
Yeah.
with what that is. I would also say at the same time, if there's anything else outstanding that you guys would like to know before they continue, I'd hate for them to continue, have something else outstanding, and then come back in 2 weeks or whenever we come back, and then have that question asked, and then come back in another 2 weeks.
And Jeff, could you check with George to see if there's been any other rulings on, I think Ian's points.
There are a lot of
good, and I'd
rulings
like
on
to hear if
378
there's-
structures and things. I think we'll have to just sift through it, but we'll definitely get something that's germane to this. I had looked at this before the meeting, but it's been lost in my brain. So.
Signs your phone, please.
It's $100 in the pot, right?
Are there any other concerns that?
It's in Tommy Anderson's line.
That
think
was,
that-
I think, yeah.
That's always been the law. But we'll open, we can still open this up for some public comment. That
Yeah,
may
I
bring
just
up
want to
more
make sure there's
questions.
nothing that's outstanding again.
Yeah.
Sounds like they would like to continue, we certainly can.
But,
In case there's,
yeah, so I'm going to open up public comment because maybe there's some other issues that maybe brought.
Cormac Collier, Nantucket Land Council. This is just one issue to give you guys a little bit more further clarification. Remember, the bylaw says it's not just pre-78 dwelling. The bylaw says anything that's substantially improved.
Mhm.
So it could be the shell of the old house, and if it's all it's up to you to determine what substantial means. But the way we used to go, I think we said more than 50%.
20%.
20%. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So, oh, you guys changed it.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Okay, so it's
True.
It's now whether you determine pre-existing bulkhead and all that in terms of. I
Pre-existing.
just want you guys to remember that because we are unfortunately going to be talking about that a lot with the new filing out.
No, it's the pre-existing.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, the pre-existing bulkhead is something. I mean, I suppose with all this, we do run the risk of, if there's a pre-78 house, don't tear it down until you build the bulkhead, and then build the bulkhead, then tear it down. And then you can do whatever you
Yeah,
want.
it doesn't make any sense to be protecting a post-78 house. with
Yeah, no, your point is
pre-78
well
bulkhead.
taken. Yeah.
I do
Thank
think
you.
we need like failure criteria. If they're not putting maintenance sand down, that's it, you pull it. Like no more a million chances.
Mhm.
That was it. Because we're not really enforcing that sort of stuff.
Yep.
And I think that's a big issue, and that's where the environmental impacts come
Sure,
in.
sure.
Okay.
So do you want to give Brian a copy of that?
I already gave it to him.
Oh, you did, okay,
And then
good.
I need a copy of it.
I will.
To keep.
Okay. Any other public comments on this item? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so continue for 2 weeks?
Sure. 2 weeks is good.
Okay, we will continue for 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going into the public meeting request for determination, starting with Richard and Joanne Gerstmann at 22 Mass Ave.
For the applicant, Art Gasparo, I'm before you tonight with an application for notice request for determination for work within the buffer zone to coastal dune. The proposed work involves replacing a failed septic system consisting of a metal tank and a leach pit with a tight tank. We're out on Mass Ave, right at the corner where you turn from New Jersey to go out towards Smith's Point. And I believe this would represent a significant long-term improvement to the area, complete removal of all pollutants. Like I say, we're on the opposite side of the road. All work is outside of the 25-foot buffer zone. So there's no waivers proposed, and I hope you would agree that this could be handled by a determination of applicability.
Guess it's just a leach pit.
In a leach pit, but the it had a metal tank, and the metal tank is automatic failure criteria
Oh,
when you do inspection.
any questions?
No, good idea.
Sounds
Yeah.
good. Any questions from the public on this one? Okay, seeing none, Jeff, do you have a recommendation for this?
Yep, I would recommend a positive 2 for the resource area boundaries and a negative 3 that allows for the work without a notice of again.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Any opposed? Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
I just keep waiting for the day when we start seeing metal tanks.
Allison K. Forsgren and William LeMay, 51B and 53 Matticat Road.
I'd just like to update our wetland survey, so we aren't planning any work, I just wanted to bring it current, so, oops,
That's all right, you're good.
all right.
Well, I'll hop in and saying that David Haynes flagged these and supplied the data forms, and we were able to confirm those boundaries the week before the storm, fortunately, in the field, and would recommend positive 2A on the resource area boundaries.
Okay.
Yeah, so moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Any questions? Good. Yeah, you're good. It's fine. I'll do two. I like this one. 2 down, 1 to go LLC, 21 Pilgrim Road.
We should have put it on a better spot on the agenda. Put it all the way down to the bottom. Maybe out of nowhere.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're talking geology. We're geology nerds.
I just saw these pictures of this amazing clay today, and I had to show Cormac.
I did that for myself.
Yeah, you guys.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Cormac shows up to like 2 meetings a year. He's already derailed us.
My apologies. Art Gasparo for the applicant. The work before you under a request for determination involves the construction of a subdivision road on the opposite side of an existing road. There's a wetland that had been previously approved on property of others, which I've taken from your files. And the proposed work is outside of the 25-foot buffer zone. There's no actual structures proposed, as the road that's being proposed is a shell road. So the work that is proposed involves is an existing residential lot, and they're creating a new, 16-foot wide sort of quasi driveway road, and running sewer and water and subsurface utilities in there. That's the extent of the work.
So the isolated vegetated wetland, is that right in the road? Or?
No, it falls off. If you drive down the road, it's off to the side.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And then Pilgrim Road actually pitches. I have grade shown on our side, but it pitches down. In other words, Cliff Road is here,
Yeah.
and this is where you come from Westchester and kind of come up the hill.
Okay. Yep.
So I don't think there's any concern for sedimentation or anything like that.
Right, so your road there.
You're already in a road, and that
Right.
road is running down. Exactly.
Any questions? Sounds good. Questions from the public? Okay, seeing none. Jeff, do you have a recommendation on this one?
Yes, I would recommend the -3 alone for the work of the notice of intent.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thanks.
Thank you. Minor mods. 115 Washington Street Extension LLC, 115 Washington Street.
Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. The minor mod application before you is just basically to add low structural member, first floor elevations onto the plan of record. There's no changes to the proposed project. And just to reiterate, project involves demo of 5 existing buildings and reconstructing 4, 3 of which are within the flood zone, B zone. And those structures, again, to reiterate, the low structural member is 2 feet above the base flood elevation at 9, so they're going to be at 11. And the first floor elevation is projected to be at 12.2. Easterly most structure closer to Washington Street, that's just within flood zone A, and that will be 1 floor or 1 foot above the base flood elevation at elevation 9. And basically, I think the building department is just requiring that you show these elevations on the plans of record, so that's all we're here for. No changes.
Some more stairs. Questions? No. Any questions from the public? Okay. Jeff, your recommendation on this one?
This is Solid plan change.
Move to issue the minor mod.
Second. All those in favor?
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
This is one of those cases where it's not necessarily a minor mod, but it's more of a plan change.
Yeah. I know some of these are like, whatever.
Where do you want me to sign this? Is it-
Oh, no, sorry, we don't sign it. I'll keep it. It's just in the stack of stuff that's a paperwork.
Sykes at 63 North Liberty Street. I want to know what a Fitbit is.
So,
What?
so this is a project with
vertical legs.
a previously approved patio area and landscaping area. And they've refined their design now to include the spa and fire pit within that area. And they're just asking for a minor modification to include that into their original plan of record.
Questions?
Is the spa raised, right? We have
Yes.
groundwater, yeah.
Yeah. It's all going right.
Okay.
Any questions from the public on this one? No? Someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, motion to, what are we saying? Approve the minor mod? Or, yes, motion to approve the minor mod.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Pass it unanimously. Okay. Going to certificates of compliance. Okay.
Normally, most of it's greater. It's not looking like that today. All right. Whenever you're ready, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Fisher. 5 North Beach Street.
Correct. So this was for the kind of the raising and construction of an existing home. That's there. There's no changes to the grade. As reflected by the as-built, the house is in compliance that's there with no substantial grade changes from the original plan. To recommend that they could be issued their certificate of compliance.
Who's got a motion?
Motion to issue.
Second.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Pass it unanimously. Alderson, 8 High Brush Path.
This was for the redevelopment of a single-family home, including a pool, fence, and stairs, an outdoor shower, and all those fun things. If you want the plan, you can. Everything is done in compliance for what's there. I just want to get the number correct for my recommendation. Sorry. Excuse me. This is one that unfortunately is from 2016. Sorry. Before we started putting all of our new pool conditions in, so I recommend that the certificate of compliance could be issued. I moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That one passes unanimously.
It's one of the ones that when they originally constructed it, the way
Yeah, I
the
saw
delineation
it.
changed
That's-
since then. So the wetland conservation is higher. So that's one of the measure codes. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay. Lord Arnold, 11 East Street.
All right, so I guess I would say if you want to, we can take numbers 3, 4, and 5 all together. And I'll just try to run through them as quickly as we can. They're all for the same property.
Okay, so this is Arnold Lloyd, 11 East Street, Bertha G. Arnold, 11 East Street, and Arnold 2.
Yep. So this is we're trying to close out some
11.
permits. One of the original permits was for some work on the 2 dwellings. And I took the plan out for this to kind of step everyone through it. Was for some work on the existing house. The more recent permit, the 2706, was for the work on the back steps here. And one of the older permits also related to the installation of some of the septic components. So that property is transferring and they're just trying to close out any of their old permits. That's what's there. I would anticipate that soon we'll probably see a new application to deal with the septic system and things upon that being completed. But the 3 permits that they're trying to close out are all in compliance and can be closed out.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion for 3 items, 3, 4, and 5? Do you have a second?
Yeah, second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? No. 3 passed unanimously. Once again, we have 3 items. Moan, an anthem, the 3rd.
Do you know what those are these?
Items 6, 7, and 8 at 84 Pockamo Road. The first one's a reissue.
Yeah, you might as well take them all at once.
Okay.
This is a property at 84 Pockamo Road, which had a set of beach access stairs that the first order allowed for the replacement. Those were replaced. The second order, there was then some work that had been done on permitted, some terracing work. That second order covered the removal of those terraces and construction of a new set of stairs that replaced the ones from 586. And the third order is for a drift fence, which is just permitted in October, which is not installed. They just want to close the order. And there's an as-built plan that shows the existing stairs. The one change that I noted in the request on the second order is that the approved stairs were a straight run all the way down, the way they sort of always used to be built. And then this one has the landing halfway so that, somebody, if they fall at the top, they'll make it the whole way to the bottom.
Okay, so the drift fence, is that the drift fence that's been on the bottom picture? Yeah.
Drift fence wasn't installed, but I show that it was installed on the abutting property, so where it shows existing drift fence, that's the neighbor's drift fence.
So is there going to be drift fence installed on this one?
No,
No.
they're
They're-
So they requested that we are invalidating.
Invalidating.
Which
Okay, gotcha.
closes that permit out. And if
Okay.
Then the
certainly-
title's clean.
Yep,
Yeah.
got it.
They certainly can come back and apply for it again, but it would require a new notice.
Right.
Anyone like to make any questions on this?
I will say we have verified all of the details that was needed.
Okay, so motion to issue, all 3 of them.
Second. All those in favor? Any opposed? No. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Snyderman, 8 Caroline Way.
So this was one that was originally for the moving of a structure. For the moving of a structure, they've decided at this point they are not going to move the structure, so they're also asking to invalidate their order.
Move to issue.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimously. There you go.
All right, and you can take them and pass it back. I will.
Oh, sorry. So the first item, orders of conditions. Nantucket Island Land Bank, 17 Commercial Wharf, and unnumbered lots, New Whale Street.
I do have some edits that I was able to make after I typed this one up, that I'll just read them for you guys.
Conditions.
But this is the Petra Landing project that we closed at the last hearing. That feels like forever ago, but it's there. Just some quick changes. In the findings, really only. I'd like to add in kind of a renumbering here. Finding number 2 would read: the commission finds that the proposed repair and reconstruction work is within the footprint of the existing slopestone revetment and solid fill pier structures, and that the commission finds that the slopestone revetment and solid fill pier are structures as defined by our regulations built before August of 1978, and therefore predate the regulations and Wetland Protection Act, such that the proposed repair and reconstruction work related to each, as detailed in the site work and description within the notice of intent and plans, is not subject to the performance standards contained in section 2.05B1 of the regulations.
Do we detect Brandwood's hand in it?
It was not. There were others involved, and we rewrote it a couple times. But
Right. Well, that's certainly very much more bulletproof.
Any comments on 17 Commercial Wharf?
I honestly just had some monitoring stuff for the dredging. Time of year restriction on the dredging, as recommended by Marine Fisheries, silt curd installation, and then a pre and post survey for eelgrass and shellfish, and then a yearly survey for 3 years. And then 22 is something that we added in actually on the project at 23 Commercial Wharf. So on the floating dock, that just some sort of stop on whatever piling that they're on to make sure that in the event of some sort of water lowering, that they don't rest on the bottom.
So
I don't know how it would happen.
They've had a bunch of low water issues. The Weather Service has issued several low water warnings.
Well, I know, just speaking from experience, like out at the hatchery, we had water lower there than we've ever seen, to the point where our cages that are normally 3 or 4 feet below the surface for the winter exposed and froze during the moon tide. So,
This is before the storm cloud came in, and pulled out.
yes, this was during the initial supermoon portion.
One of those super moons, yeah.
So, the storm tide wasn't a big help there either, but that was for
So, so they're going to have to construct it differently in the dock. I mean, the weight of the dock on the piers is going to be considerable if that happens.
No, it's just I mean, they put them on a lot of them. A couple of the town pier ones have them too. It's just a way that they roll. I don't think it will ever happen. We can take it out if you guys are feeling it.
No, I think it's a good idea. I was just wondering how you construct them so that you don't, so that the full weight of the dock, is held.
Well, hopefully it's on water.
Or it's sitting
Right.
kind of on water, just with the
Right.
part of it floating down.
I think it's a good idea.
I mean, usually they set those things, to be honest, about the ones like at 23 are set, I believe, 6 inches from the bottom. So it's pretty difficult to run out of that much water in that location, especially if they dredge it. So
Yeah.
it shouldn't be happening, but it's more of a just in case.
Yeah. Well, move to issue as amended.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Passes unanimously. 2 Powers Revocable Trust, 64 Hunt Pond Road.
So I'll run through the conditions that are there first. So we have some photo monitoring up there at 1920 is our exterior lighting to be directed away from the resource areas. No fertilizer within the restoration areas, and then the annual report demonstrating the amount of fertilizer used within commission jurisdiction. So that was to kind of address what's also happening in the areas where there are currently landscape operations, but they're required to provide that. 22 is not applicable, so we'll just scratch 22. Sorry. And then another annual report demonstrating the condition of the restored resource areas and buffer zones for 3 years, kind of at a minimum. And then kind of the meat and potatoes of this order is in the findings. We talked a lot about all of these things. I just wanted to get out the plans for everybody. This will be helpful to see. So the first one is that it didn't require natural heritage review, which is correct. And then the one thing that we talked a lot about and that I was concerned about, is dealing with a lot of these unpermitted structures that have been constructed in kind of the timeline of history. And LEC has done a pretty decent job recreating things that were there. So I tried to break them out. This is labeled by square footage mostly on the plan. Let me finish up a small copy of the plan here. Then just to run through them, that the condition 2, finding 2, should be the commission finds. They can all start with the commission finds. I just forgot to put that. That the existing septic system was designed and constructed in accordance with the Board of Health permit showing the system outside of commission jurisdiction and not requiring a permit. And I'll come back to that because I had an idea for a condition that I wanted to talk about that I didn't put. Number 3, this will start kind of on the left-hand side of the plan if you can see it, that the 551 square foot structure and 182 square foot structure are constructed within the footprint of a barn used as part of the agricultural use that was destroyed by a fire. So that's the left 2 that are on the concrete pad. Moving down, the 1,907 square foot barn, the 973 square foot house, and a 142 square foot shed are in compliance with existing regulations and are permitted to remain and be maintained. So that's the big barn up front, the house that the additions are being proposed on, and then you'll look just to the left of that, there's that little 142 square foot shed. All of those are out of the 50-foot setback and would have been permissible had they applied for permits to do so. And then the 3 structures on the eastern side of the property, as shown on the plan, they didn't have square footages, so I just kind of showing them that were there. And the 935 square foot building were constructed as part of the prior agricultural use of the property. So they had documented when those had gone in and are part of that use. The other 2 sheds that are coming out are the ones that are within the wetland resource area in there. But those were the findings, and I forgot. On number 2, for the existing septic system, I thought it would be a good idea to put in a condition, maybe a condition 23, that any additional site modifications would require a fully compliant septic system. So that would probably be, in this case, you're talking probably some sort of IA system that's outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. I know this one, as it sits, has been kind of approved by the Board of Health to maintain for their current project, but I think if we put in something that said anything additional would require the upgrade of the existing septic system to maximum feasible compliance would be a fair thing.
Wouldn't that contradict sharing the system outside of commission jurisdiction?
At the time of permitting is when that was outside. So by current regulations, it's within the 100-foot buffer zone on the plan that was approved at the Board of Health and constructed and issued.
Yes, so if you want to add that to at the time of permitting.
Yes.
So anything additional,
Right.
the gist of it, Jeff, is anything additional that wants to be permitted here is subject to an upgraded septic system, yes?
Question, do I know? This restoration area was also a bit of a mitigation, right, for the wetland that was maybe.
Correct.
So do we need
No,
to say
fair.
restoration and mitigation of wetland area? Do we somehow?
So I think, let me finish the one edit and then have an idea for the second one. It's okay. So we'll add the condition, any additional work on site will require the upgrade of the existing septic system to a system with maximum feasible components.
So that means if they just built a shed, they have to,
Well, I mean, we could talk about that.
do you want to say dwelling or?
Yeah.
I mean, I know if someone's going to put a bathroom there, I get it, but just.
So I think that's reasonable, any occupied dwelling.
I think anything that requires a building permit, probably.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
not a
but
shed,
that's-
you still have building permits. It's whether you put in a bathroom, I think should trigger
Well, I
that.
can tell you
Yeah, I
from
think they have
personal
porta
experience,
potties.
anything that, any new structure beyond like replacing windows and shingling is subject to current septic standards now.
So why don't we
I think
just change it to say, any additional work involving new structures or modification to existing structures will require the upgrade of the existing septic system.
I mean,
Well, I think
that-
Joe's
that-
point
that
is that
depends.
you want to have habit written into it. Because you see,
Well,
otherwise,
it's not even habitable, it's probably the right term to use. Just bathroom facilities. You know, I mean, I could see if someone's just building a shed.
But when
which
people
you'd be
are
going-
living in the shed and using the bathrooms of the current buildings, because I think
That's been known to happen.
that's
down
been known
there.
to happen
Yeah.
back there, and it's hard to kind of distinguish what's happening.
Sheds for a while.
I think it really helps to clean this up. I mean, I can see how we
we can't predicate on.
I can see the reasons we went with the existing septic system. It was permitted, but anything further here, which I imagine this site is going to get developed into something that's much different than what it is.
I think like we talked a lot about with the hearing, I think the big point of the order of conditions on this case, and we'll get back to the actual finding in a second, is setting the baseline to start from again.
Yes.
And saying that this is it.
This is
This
it.
is what you start with. You know, you build a little addition onto one of those buildings and it's inviting more people there, you're upgrading septics.
Well, that would trigger that anyways, that building
Yes.
permit review. So that would get them back into the health department anyways.
Yes.
So that's where I'm saying, I think if it requires that upgrade, then I think it should, but if it's just a standalone shed, why upgrade the system?
Right.
If it's just for a tractor, and that's where I'm just,
No, I think that's a valid point.
I'm trying to think how to put that. We could put like excluding storage sheds.
that was,
I don't agree. I don't agree at all. I think it should. I think we got to establish a baseline here. They're already getting away with quite a bit on this site.
It's up to you guys.
That's where I stand on it.
Well, won't they evaluate it and say, I mean, what if they build a storage shed and there's no more occupancy, do they need to upgrade the system?
I think this is as much about going forward as it is anything.
Exactly, but I mean,
Well,
if they-
I mean, just out of curiosity, do we know how many bedrooms the system is designed for? I mean, if it's a two-trench system like the picture shows, it's pretty small.
Is the system that's there? Do you remember, Brian? Just for clarity purposes.
I want to say the building permit application may have said 6, but
Back then.
I thought it was 5.
Yeah,
it's not said in the application.
Wouldn't be surprised if there's Winnebagos show up back there, you know, I mean,
I mean, they always have the opportunity to come in and amend a permit too. You know, you can come back and say, well, this is what's going on, and we're amending a permit, so.
I mean, it's not asking a lot to have them. I tend to think that this system is touchy.
Me too.
At best. I would think, I'd be questioning whether even the health department would allow anything added onto this.
I just feel like this thing is sort of squeaking through.
Well, they
Technicality.
applied for it in building department. Is it still-
The health department just signed off on
Well,
it.
no, they checked it. They checked it.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
right. That it's still good. I'm wondering if they would still. Yeah. Anything else onto it? Well, I would question adding anything more to it. Unless you got this big old barn that supposedly doesn't have a bathroom. Usually you see them filming that. It's a huge building. Surprised if
It's
there's nothing in it.
different companies, they
Yeah.
do their own porta potty.
Right.
So what are we actually focused on? We're focused on that we don't want them to take advantage of putting an extra structure in without upgrading the
Right.
system, right?
Exactly.
So, but Joe's point that, you know, if they just want to protect the tractor, it seems a reasonable enough one.
Mhm.
So,
Or can we depend on future commissions to make the call? I mean,
Yeah.
I think what maybe needs to be stated is something to the effect that the septic system is not suitable for any future development, or just so there's some kind of record, so that anything in the future, people know that they're gonna have to upgrade that system.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, in the relative near future, there's going to be a sewer line on the street. Solvable problem.
Maybe.
Relative.
Yeah.
Relative.
I don't want to sound glib when I say this. I would pump the brakes on new sewer proposals for quite some time.
We need to
Yeah,
deal
we
with
got-
current infrastructure
yeah,
before we
current-
add more.
Old
That's not our
pipes,
style.
It's
We'll talk about that.
Okay.
so actually, according to my notes, you wanted the landscapers using the greenhouses to provide records.
Yeah,
Has that been
should
added
be
in?
the no fertilizer allowed annual report demonstrating the amount of fertilizer used in the commission jurisdiction. So that's
Here, we just want to say that no fertilizer within restorations fairly used within commission jurisdiction. So
That's a little
Use of
separate
storage.
from keeping records.
an annual report demonstrating the amount. How that gets passed to the people actually applying the fertilizer is the tough part of it.
Right.
You're concerned about the plantings that they put in here temporarily?
It's crazy back
Yeah.
here. So
all
like
the
they store.
temporary planted.
Yeah,
stored
you
plant.
have 50
Yeah.
hydrangeas healed into the ground,
Yeah.
getting liquid
Right.
fruit.
Until they're moved.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
annuals that, are plugged and
Mhm.
things like that. So there's definitely, in the past at least, been lots of pesticides, fertilizers used on this site. I think going forward, we should clean that up.
Yeah.
all right. So when we think about that, the another finding, the one I actually just brought up, at number 6, that the commission finds that the mitigation and restoration areas are required to partially replace a vegetated wetland shown on previous plans within the commission's records. I don't know if they're going to put that because it's been on other plans and it disappeared. Let's type this up. You know, just thinking about that 23, to kind of address that and to fix it maybe, just to think out loud. Maybe on to that finding number 2, the existing septic system was designed and constructed in accordance with the Port of Health permit, showing the system outside of commission jurisdiction and not requiring a permit at the time of permitting. Maybe you just add on that to say current conditions show that septic system to not be in compliance with current regulations. Any further site modifications may require the upgrade and replacement of that septic system. And then it's in there. It's not a what's there. I think it gets to the point
Yeah.
and it defines it. So, and then you're finding that it's not.
It's not what we would like.
Yes.
I think we can compromise on that one.
There. Anything else from everyone?
I move to issue as an
All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor of?
You get one?
Any opposed?
Thanks, sir.
Okay,
Thanks very much.
passes unanimously.
We have to help them. All right, one more.
energy there. Fill your pockets.
I may just eat them all at once.
Take it for the kids.
Cut.
There are no kids in the board
Save them for the kids. That is that.
right before bed.
Let's not.
I mean, I will happily feed my kids a bunch of chocolate that you can don't like.
Okay, Kathy Gallagher, Revocable Trust. There it falls inside the map.
This one is far less creative than the others.
Yep. Do you have any more thoughts on this one? Pretty straightforward.
Okay. Yes.
All set?
Yep, move the issue as drafted.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passed unanimously. And then we have a couple reissues. So Arnold, 11 East Street.
Well, the good news is we need to reissue these, even though we just closed them out in the search problem. They need to record them, and they just didn't. I meant to do this first, but
Do we need some sort of motion on it?
just need a motion to reissue.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Especially reissuing dead permits.
Very good. Both passed unanimously. Extension orders
Interesting concept.
for me. For Bennett, 22 Lily Street. Oh, I have to talk about it.
Then at 22 Lily Street, this was for
Michael Lewacki.
sorry, names might be wrong. Lily Street. This was the to construct a raised porch within the buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. They've started the work and done the site prep and stuff for it, but the order expires on March the 4th of 2018. They don't feel like they're going to finish in time, so they're just asking for an extension.
Motion to issue.
I gotta recuse myself, sorry.
Oh, okay. Do you have a second?
We do. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that one passes for Commissioner Topham. Recused. So, other business. Everyone happy with the minutes? Excellent. Thank you, Terry. Approved by unanimous consent. Enforcement actions?
I just have one. I'm chasing a couple other ones, but the one that we have would like to issue an enforcement to remove the house on stilts out in Nantucket. They're trying to get it out of there, and they have some cleanup work to do. This gives us a little more flexibility, so just ordering it. The stilt house, Henry's house.
How did it all survive out there?
What's that?
How did it all survive out there through the last
Fine,
month?
it's kind.
Those stills.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, there's a lot of sand that has moved in. The lagoon is pretty much gone.
Did that get worse again?
Yeah, but that beach is pretty narrow in front of that house. It's honestly on borrowed time. So
Yeah.
they'd like to get rid of it as quickly as possible.
Are they going to try to get it out of there in one piece?
I think so.
I know they were looking for somebody.
That's why we just order it removed. Whether it
Yeah.
leaves in 1
Yeah.
or 1 million,
Right.
because it needs to go.
Okay.
So
I'll help you out or anything.
they're just having trouble getting it deemed as an emergency removal.
Yeah.
And we can't issue emergencies unless they're deemed an emergency. So I told them we would just enforce it out from our end, and then they could get rid of it. They'll be back with a notice at some point to clean it up.
Oh, do I need a
I do need a.
motion on this one?
Yeah, you can just make a motion to ratify the enforcement.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Reports.
I'll go
CPC?
under.
Nothing to report.
Nothing from MPEDC. Mosquitoes are an issue. I don't know if there's any other ones. Commissioner comments? Yeah, I was just wondering if nothing.
All right, so before we get to the good one, one quick update. Cormac teased it a little bit, so I don't want to go on it. Wisconsin Beach Preservation Fund has filed a new notice of intent application to expand the existing geotube structure both to the north and to the south. And I will tell you right now, they didn't provide any property owner consents, so the town hadn't signed it or the abutting property owners. So we have temporarily essentially rejected the notice of intent at this point as not being complete. Because if you don't have permission to do the work, what are we talking about? So they had sent out abutter notices and things like that for the next meeting, but we informed them that we would not be scheduling their hearing until they had completed their application. So you may see advertisements and things for it, and we'll have to get the word out, but it's not going to be heard on that day because, one, most of the work that they're proposing is taking place on town-owned land, and they're not even going to be in front of the Board of Selectmen to discuss the possibility of signing that notice of intent until the 18th or 17th, whatever next Wednesday is. So it's a requirement of the application. I'm not trying to say we're not trying to stall, but it's an important enough project to complete the application
Yeah, no kidding.
That's the problem.
at its base level. And again, having authorization for that is, and licensing agreements and all that, having lived through the last one, is something that needs to be in place before we can even really hear it. So, decision I made to do because it just needed to be done, and that's kind of where that sits. everyone has any questions about that, I'm happy to answer that. But it's coming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't think that it's not. That this is just we've passed it off to somewhere else. It's going to go away forever. It will probably be back at some point, but it's got to be.
More like early February.
Have you been out there to look?
I went out during the storm and saw it was actively washing. The area that I was most interested in and concerned about is directly to the south of where the geotubes are, down in Hubbard Weimar structure. That was completely washed over and overtopped, and that looked to take some pretty significant damage. I'll admit it and say I haven't made it onto the beach to look at the geotube itself. I've been a little occupied. So
You gotta get one of those baby killer things and just go there from
I wish it was occupied for handling the baby, but it is not.
I went out last week and it looked like they'd lost a lot of sand.
Yeah, my kind of initial look looked like it was washing pretty directly onto the face of the structure. Just kind of pre-storm, but again, I haven't seen it post-storm. Haven't really seen anything post-storm.
They're happy with their tubes. I'm surprised they're not thinking more hard.
You know, they've just
Put the
been
money
very
into
lucky
tubes.
that the wind has shifted out to the north and northwest every time, basically, without
So-
really planning.
Long story short, if you guys want right off the bat, we usually have done the first presentation as part of our regular meetings, and then have gone to special meetings to just do the bluff. If you guys are interested in that, we can look at scheduling that. It's kind of why I brought it up, to see if that's something you guys want to do, so you could do the in-between Wednesdays or something that's there, just to get it separate from the rest of the agenda, so we're not hopefully here until 10 o'clock at night, because those hearings tend to be lengthy.
I think it's better.
Yeah. So,
It just
if people want to look at their schedule, we'll have a little bit of time, and we can figure that out. We can kind of schedule that through emails. So, that's there. And the second part of my report, I'll be honest, I'll just, whatever questions you guys have about the sewer break, I'm happy to answer any you guys want, or if you guys want a little rundown of what happened, I can do that too. Doesn't really make a difference to me. I just don't want to hold everyone here longer than they need to be here. So, but long story short, Thursday night around 8:15, the sewer break was discovered in the area right at the corner of the South Beach Extension and Broad Street. So right at Walters was its initial plan of discovery. Was told everything from people could see water leaving the walls of Walters and breaking out of the sidewalk that's there and causing some damage. And then that breakout continued down South Beach Street with the most catastrophic damage outside of the pipe itself happening kind of right in front of Cook Cycles. If anyone stands at the fence edge and kind of looks in, there's about a 15-foot long, 3-foot wide, and 2 feet deep sinkhole in the pavement where the pavement gave way in front of Cook Cycles. Thursday night, when everyone was on scene trying to decide the best course of action, in consultation with the folks at DEP, the choices that were presented to the group by DEP were essentially continue to pump, which was not really an option, and just let it overlay and flow. Turn off the pumps and probably get back up into homes as it's looking to relieve itself, or turn off the pumps and give it somewhere to go over land in the area of the break, kind of across Easy Street and South Beach Street and Broad Street, get into the storm collection system, and then discharge through the 2 kind of outfalls, the one Children's Beach outfall, the large one that's at the yacht club, the smaller one that's in the corner of the yacht club and the Steamship Authority, and then the Easy Street Basin. At that point, that was DEP's recommendation and preferred course of action. That's what the town did. And then the next day was spent trying to mobilize the repair crew from off island to get here to construct a bypass in the other force main coming from the C Street station to discontinue that, and at the same time try to figure out some way to screen that effluent and try to get it into as few discharge points as possible. by the end of Saturday, all of it was going through kind of that modified roll-off dumpster and being screened and going in at the yacht club. And that stopped all of the other discharges, like Easy Street and the Children's Beach outfall, except for what residuals were in the system and on the street and what was kind of moving. The bypass was completed, and then after all of the backflow prevention valves were excavated up in Surfside Road and turned off to make sure that it wasn't going to go up to the treatment facility and then just come back out of the Surfside pump station. That stopped all flow into the harbor itself. There was a little bit of, even after the black flow was turned off, once it was there and the flow stopped, there was a little bit of residual that was left that obviously found its way to wherever it was going to go. And then Clean Harbors, the subcontractor was brought in. You'll see them down there now. Well, they may not be down there now, but they were down there earlier today, and they'll be continuing here for the indefinite future, decontaminating all those areas by essentially applying bleach. And then after they apply bleach, they let it sit, they wash it, and then they back up all of that liquid. They plug all of the catch basins and stormwater things to make sure that it doesn't run out or get anywhere, recollect it, and then they also cleaned out all of the catch basins and those things. And hopefully as they're stepping through that, they focus primarily first on Easy Street, the connecting streets, Broad Street, to get those reopened, hopefully to traffic. South Beach Street is going to be closed for the indefinite future until one figure out what exactly happened. That's still unknown. It's still subsurface for where the break was, how many breaks there are, what caused the break. All of those things are still not known at this point. The focus was to first, obviously, end the discharge, and then second, clean up as many affected areas as possible to return foot and vehicle traffic to as normal as possible, and then start kind of backwards engineering what happened on South Beach Street. I mean, they're talking now a lot of probably hand excavation of pavement on South Beach Street because they're not sure that it's structurally sound enough to support the weight of the vehicle. So it's going to be slow going.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any truth to the rumor that one of the hindrances is that the utility line from the electrical line from the mainland comes in where the break is?
That is not rumor. That is true.
That is true.
So South Beach Street, for those who haven't tracked the utilities, within South Beach Street is South Beach Street contains two of the power cables from the mainland, the 4-inch fiber optic line that is a lot of our communications on the island. There's a water main. There was the 20-inch sewer force main that failed. And then there's also some old abandoned utilities that were in there. There was an old gas line apparently that's in that road that may still be in there in bits and pieces. But it's all within. The last time this sewer line, and I'll get the year wrong, but I'll get close. The last time this sewer line was really substantially worked on is when they sleeved the HDPE liner in it in 1983, either 81 or 83. Early 80s is when they sleeved the 20-inch iron pipe with the 16-inch HDPE pipe. That's the last time that was there. And then they started doing camera work through the gravity mains because you can access those through the manholes. So they started with the South Beach Street extension, so that's the one that runs kind of behind the Juice Bar and Sunken Ship and behind Walters, to make sure that that's still structurally sound and doesn't look like it's going to have any problems. They're starting on doing the camera work on the stuff on South Beach Street, but before even some of the workers are in there, they have to finish decontaminating that area, or you're in there in suits and all kinds of fun stuff that you're supposed to not be around. So that's about it. Oh, to add into it, so we've started already though. We're taking daily water samples from all of the outfall points and sending those off for a whole host of things. We're doing it from some of the nutrients, so doing a kind of a total nitrogen suite on there. We're doing bacterial analysis, so that's things like fecal coliforms and other bacteria. Looking at viruses we've sent off now. We're going to hopefully soon be starting to be able to do testing for any prescription medications that may have been released as part of that. We're looking at VOCs, heavy metals, anything that may have been in that system that was discharged. I will tell you, I just, right before I walked in, got the first results on fecals, and the fecals, to no one's surprise, came back as too numerous to count. So hopefully that means that tomorrow will not be too numerous to count and we'll start to go down. But that's, the town is kind of in the want to do daily tests until we get consistent clean samples for those things that we're looking for. Once we get those areas a little bit more stable and kind of back in order, we're going to be doing some sediment testing in those areas. I think now we'd also like to add in not just sediment testing, but if possible, we may try to get someone in there to even just look at any sediments that may have accumulated above and beyond what was there prior to see if that's changed. And at this point, as far as cleanup and restoration goes, nothing's really off the table. There may be some dredging that's done in association with this, depending on bathymetry and testing. I'm just trying to get it as picked up as possible. So, again, that's kind of the quick 5-minute summary on everything that happened.
Testing for opiates too.
Well, that would be included in the pharmaceuticals.
Question, because they came in front of us to do some upgrades. Was that like a year ago? Is the tree pump station?
It was a little less than a year ago. They
never
were
did that.
Submersible pump.
no.
They work.
The C Street pump station was in the process of being upgraded, and the one plus side to it being upgraded, one is you had a contractor with equipment in the area, and the pumps that are running the system now were in place to be there. At this point, I mean, obviously the upgrade where there's no pumps in the station right now because they're being installed wasn't running, so they're running on backup pumps. But I mean, at this point, it's even hard to say what the cause of it was. But the pump station upgrade at this point wasn't necessarily related to what happened. I will say though, just as an aside to that, the town has contracted a different engineering firm to come back in to do the analysis of the break to be sure that if what was spec'd out in the original design for the C Street pump station and the work that was there, if there was an error in engineering from that company, that they may pick that up if that was associated with the possible cause. So it's something where it's trying to get independent eyes to go back and look and see what may have caused the problems is something that's important. So there's not a biased look as we're trying to figure out, there's a lot of questions for insurance and FEMA and NEMA and disaster and what caused it and what did. I don't think it's going to be very cheap repair. So that's kind of where we are. It's a lot of unknown still. The good news is that discharge to the harbor has ended. The other good news is it happened in the absolute coldest part of the year, which is good. If this would have happened in July, the results would have been catastrophic, not only in sheer volume of effluent that went into the harbor, but to kind of summarize that is, there was about 2.7 million gallons of wastewater that went in this event. So obviously, a lot of that may have been storm waters and flood waters that had mixed in and infiltrated in. But the projected flows for, if this would have happened in something in July, would have been solidly over 4 million gallons. So, what's that?
In total.
That's in total for the duration of the event. So, and that's also dry months for you in that storm condition. So,
Is the assumption that the whole pipe is going to have to be replaced along that area?
I would say the assumption at this point is that the town is committed to replace whatever is needed. I don't think they know the full totality of the failure at this point. And everything, and I'll be fair in saying everything from complete relocation of where that pipe is to replacing what's there in place. I don't think there's any real choice that's off the table at this point because one of the concerns, like Ian brought up earlier, is there's so many utilities in that road. If there's a way to start isolating those utilities or separating those out, that may be a more preferable option. So if something like this were to happen in the future, it would be easy to
Cities
get
have
to.
to find sewer overflow, so they get it all.
So, yeah, I mean, other comparative communities, New Bedford has real problems with sewage, not to pile on for New Bedford, but when they have major storms, they average at least 1 million gallons of effluent that gets into their harbor. So,
Yeah.
I was surprised to find out after talking to DEP and the DMF and those folks that sewage discharges in Massachusetts are not necessarily as uncommon as I
Yeah.
thought
It's common in the more United States.
they were. Yeah.
unfortunately.
So,
Yeah.
and the Merrimack River had one this year. They had a 10 million gallon discharge
God.
on the river this year.
So
So,
very
Maybe this is
Um,
for stormwater management guidelines too, because that system was obviously overwhelmed with tons of stormwater right
Well-
before, and then it's freezing. So it's all.
Well- I mean, just to speak in front of what happened in the jetty's office, I'm not sure that there's any system that would have handled the 4 to 5 feet deep of water that
Yeah, how
flowed
much-
down our river.
Is that right,
So,
Jeff? Is that how much
Storm
was-
drains.
Water,
They
how
filled
much
out.
water down
is
there.
the stormwater is definitely a big component of it and should definitely be looked at. But again, I hate to sound like the town party line. I don't think we really know what caused it for sure at this point.
So is that what you're planning for to discuss on this subsequent?
Oh yeah, we're going to be down there and give the board of selectmen an update on.
Well, thanks for the dress.
Yeah. So where they? Yeah.
Well, I've gotten to give that talk a lot, so.
You getting good at it? So where do they divert it? Where they?
So the way it's diverted now, they installed the bypass, and there is an additional 16-inch force main that comes into the C Street station. And it's the line that runs out of town and then across Chicken Hill, and then down into Surfside from there, into the Surfside pumping station over by Mandy Dias' house. Is the easiest way to explain about where it is. So they were able to, the contractor there cut into that pipe, took the 20-inch force main, bypassed the good section into that portion of that pipe, and then we're slowly able to ramp up the flow from the other pipe to go that way. And then the concern arose that the Surfside pumping station, it's all kind of big loops, how it all works, is they needed to turn off one of the valves to prevent backflow from getting back down to the 20-inch force main from the other direction. And that was what the excavation in Surfside Road was to do, was to get to the valve that had been paved over to close it. So we wouldn't be pumping it just to pump it back down and have it flow out of the beach treated it. So, and that's working like a dream right now. Hopefully it stays. But we're coming into a major rain event again this weekend. So
Yeah.
Are you putting out more notices to people on town water? Because I know it's at the bottom of each town notice, like, limit your water use, but I don't know if people really are getting that message. I know
So-
that it's difficult to put out. But
one of the tricky parts with limiting water usage is, and the one piece that hasn't necessarily gone out into full consumption because it can be a little confusing, is the other major concern we had with the sewer leak outside of the discharge was with the sewage treatment facility not receiving the effluent that it normally has. The filtration system there and the biology involved with that was dangerously close to crashing because it wasn't getting enough food to feed all the little bugs and critters that make it happen. I mean, I know there was at one point we were on the phone with the consultant, and they were figuring out how many pounds of dog food we could add into the system to keep it running, because with the lack of bugs and things that are there, you can't get supplemental nutrients that they normally have in there, and it's kind of backup. So we were requesting limited use of water, but it's a little bit of a double-edged sword sometimes too. So,
Or is it not what you're flushing down there?
well, I will say, and I'll say it for David Gray, is you should always watch what you're flushing,
Yeah.
because we screened out 2,300 pounds of things like flushable wipes and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
And even though the packaging may say flushable, it is lies.
It is not.
So things like that, if you can avoid putting them down the toilet, that's where a lot of problems happen in systems. They get clogged. They don't go through the macerators very well. They can cause problems with the filtering of the treatment facility.
Well, it would be a good idea to have the newspaper draw attention to this. This is a perfect time to do something.
It is. I mean, I know we've run campaigns before about not flushing pipes and doing things. It's tough. It's a tough subject. That's a tough subject everywhere for not flushing pipes. So that's kind of where we are.
Okay, move to adjourn.
Yes. Thanks for those permit applications. Good. I know it doesn't, but